Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's ASPPH Presents webinar, Student Services Spotlight, Unique Approaches to Orientation, as we explore innovative approaches to student orientation presented by 3 schools of public health. This webinar is part of the 2016 ASPPH Presents monthly series, which has been designed as a service to CEPH-accredited ASPPH member schools and programs of public health. A few housekeeping items of note. While you are in listen-only mode and your lines have been muted, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by using the question box. We will address your questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the ASPPH website in the archived webinar section soon. Additionally, this webinar has been approved for 1 hour of CPH continuing education credit. Our speakers today are Jan Gascoigne, an assistant professor in the Community and Behavioral Health Department and the Associate Dean for Student Affairs at the Colorado School of Public Health. As a faculty member, Dr. Gascoigne teaches Foundations of Public Health and the MPH Practicum course. Additionally, she serves as a liaison between community organizations and students with a goal of providing public health practice experiences for university students. Dr. Gascoigne earned her PhD in Curriculum and Instruction with an emphasis in health education from Kent State University. She is also a certified health education specialist and has several health and wellness coaching certifications. Dr. Gascoigne will be presenting the Colorado School of Public Health Student Handbook Scavenger Hunt Orientation Activity. Our second presenter, Stephanie Johnson, is the Director of Academic Services for the Dornsife School of Public Health at Drexel University. Stephanie has worked in central offices at Drexel University, such as Enrollment Management and the Office of the University Registrar. In her current role, Stephanie is responsible for ensuring that students develop relationships with central offices such as Drexel Central, which handles registration, financial aid, and billing services for Drexel University. Stephanie will be presenting the Drexel University School of Public Health orientation approach for incorporating online and hybrid students. Caitlin McCullough has been with the Graduate School of Public Health at the University of Pittsburgh and the Office of Student Affairs for over 10 years. She's currently the Events Coordinator for Student Affairs. In addition to event planning, she also helps manage the student sections of the Pitt Public Health website, runs student surveys, and produces a weekly compilation of events and announcements for the school called Weekly Update. Caitlin will be presenting the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health approach to orientation, Plunge into Pitt. Thank you for being here today, Jan, Stephanie, and Caitlin. Jan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to have the chance to share with you a little bit about what we do at the Colorado School of Public Health in our orientation, as well as to learn from the other speakers some innovative ideas that we can incorporate. So moving quickly, if we can get my slide to move. Sarah, I might need help with moving the slide.
There you go.
There we go. Just to give you a little idea, our School of Public Health is a collaborative school. We're in the state of Colorado at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus, Colorado State University, and the University of Northern Colorado. And we hold one orientation for all of our degree programs a week before classes start. Additionally, each one of the partner institutions hosts an orientation specific to their respective campuses. We do have the one-day orientation. It's highly encouraged, but it's not mandatory. Also today, what I'm going to be talking about is how we get students engaged in our handbook. And the handbook that we have is one handbook for three institutions, no matter where the students go. And then each institution has some specific addendums to that handbook that apply to that specific campus. So our orientation agenda typically for the day looks like a welcome from the deans. We do icebreakers so the students get to know each other. Then we have some time with matriculation logistics of how to use all of the systems across all 3 of our schools so students can be integrated into the systems and able to utilize them. Then we do the handbook scavenger hunt, which I'm going to focus on in just a minute. We then have students break into their specific departments and meet with their faculty advisors and concentration directors. We have a session where we talk about opportunities for practice-based learning, and we start the conversation of building their career plan when they come to orientation. They then have lunch with our faculty and current students, and then in the afternoon we hold a 4-hour health equity training to start our students all on the same page with the language of health equity, and it's done through an educational theater with our partners at Kaiser Permanente in Colorado. So that's what our day looks.
Jan, we can't hear you.
Now I'm too far ahead, sorry. So as part of matriculation, each one of our students electronically gets the handbook. As part of when they go in and get that handbook, they also electronically sign an agreement that they've read it and they agree to the school's honor code. On top of that, then at our orientation, we give each student a hard copy of the handbook, so they also have that with them. In our handbook session at orientation, we really do have two outcomes that we're looking for. One is to ensure that all the students have a handbook and that they know this is the first place to look for guidance if they have questions about any of the operations of the schools, their rights and responsibility as a student, as well as our rights and responsibility as a school with them. We also want that session to highlight the policies that we see students most often utilizing or where students most often have questions. This session lasts typically about an hour, and what we ask the students to do is break up into groups of 4 or 5, and this is an opportunity for the students to get to know some other students as well. And then we give students 8 scenarios, and we ask them to work together to identify the policy in the handbook and respond to the question of the case or the scenario that we gave them. Each team submits their responses, and then prizes are awarded to the team that get the most correct and have the most creative correct answers. And I will say we do learn a lot from the most creative correct answers, as sometimes things that we weren't thinking about, students are thinking about, and it helps us to support them in ways that we wouldn't have been able to. So here's an example of one of our scavenger hunt sample cases. Spacey Bear has left campus after class on Thursday, September 5th to go backpacking in the mountains for the weekend. Before he left, he forgot to drop an extra class, and he had registered for the drop and add deadline is September 6th at 5 p.m. He tried to email the Office of Student Affairs, but there was no cell phone coverage near Breckenridge. Assuming it's a 3-credit class that he forgot to drop, about how much is it going to cost him to withdraw from the class? So oftentimes students go and look it up and they figure out they've missed the deadline, a 3-credit class, how much is tuition, and that would be the cost. But a creative response we also have gotten on this is Spacey Bear came back down from Breckenridge and went to Starbucks where there was free Wi-Fi, and he emailed before 5 p.m. So students really take it and have a good time with it, but they also then understand these are the deadlines or these are some of the things we're looking for. This format, as I said, really allows our students to get to know each other and work together to identify and understand the policies. It also helps take what is kind of a dry topic and sometimes a really strong lecturing topic into a more engaged and fun way to look at it, but it's also necessary content that we want students to know. We have done evaluations since we started doing this, and our students rate this much higher than we were just when we were just giving an overview of the lecture for the handbook. And then that's just a quick overview of our scavenger hunt. I'm happy to take questions about it, but I think we're saving those to the end. So I will pass this on to the next speaker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me and for participating in this webinar. I was really excited to get the call about speaking on how to incorporate online and hybrid students into orientation. And this is something that we have been working on for years, and something that we have changed and made, we implemented and we made changes based on new technology. One thing, a few years ago when we started using the techniques that we use now, we thought, why didn't we do this before? And before, the technology just wasn't as good. So now that we have updated new technology, we are trying new approaches that will help incorporate our online and hybrid students and get them engaged before they begin classes with us. And I'm just going to the next slide. It should change in a few minutes, a few seconds. I may need someone to switch it for me. Can everyone hear me? Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me now. Just going over the population that we are trying to engage. We have 3 fully online certificate programs, and we also have 1 hybrid program, which is our executive MPH program. The certificate programs are a little smaller in population. I would say 10 to 15 per cohort, and we do enroll quarterly for those programs. Our executive MPH program is larger, and we only admit for that program once a year, and that's in the fall. So for our fully online certificate programs, we definitely needed to find ways to incorporate these students into orientation since they never come to campus. And then for our hybrid students, we were looking for ways that we can incorporate these students and engage them before they begin attendance. For our executive MPH program, those students meet once a month in class, 1 week in a month, 1 Friday and 1 Saturday, and then all other coursework is done online. So we rarely get to see them, and we wanted to make sure that we engage those students before they come in for their first class meeting and before they come in for the in-person orientation. And just going to the next slide. We use our online learning management system to incorporate students, and we use Blackboard Learn. Blackboard Learn is used for all of our classes, whether online, hybrid, or in-person. Blackboard Learn is used for our in-person classes just to share information and sometimes just to have discussion boards with students when they are not in class. So it's something that all of our students need to get familiar with. And it has been useful with just getting the students familiar with the learning management system before they begin classes, because we want them to be able to focus on their schoolwork when they are here as opposed to learning how to use the learning management system. It also helps for us to encourage students to sign up for their university email and university accounts, because they have to have those accounts before they can log into the learning management system. We use online the Blackboard Learn system as an icebreaker to have discussion boards with students before classes begin. Usually in class, every class has a discussion board of welcome where students can introduce themselves, but this is a good way for students to engage with each other before classes begin and to ask questions. And we can also monitor those discussion boards. So when we monitor those boards and we see that students have certain questions that may not have been answered, we can begin to give the students that information through Blackboard Learn as opposed to waiting for the in-person orientation for hybrid students. and as opposed to not giving the information to online students. So it's a good way for us to meet the students and also get information on what they are looking for once they confirm to one of our programs. It's also a way for us to assess students before they get here. So the hybrid students, they come in, when they come in for orientation, it is a week before classes begin. So that's not a lot of time to get prepared. So using Blackboard Learn to give assessments has been helpful to our students. A lot of students are very nervous or anxious about classes like biostatistics, epidemiology, just not knowing what to expect. So the assessment also helps to relieve that stress, and it also gives us a chance to see where these students are before they begin their courses. Another thing that this system has been useful for is our evaluation system. Drexel University adopted a new system. We call it APHIS. It's the Academic Evaluation, Feedback, and Intervention System. And this is going to help all of the colleges and schools at Drexel University a lot. We are able to use evaluations, course evaluations, to evaluate faculty, also to evaluate what students feel that they are getting from their courses. And we will, in a few years, once we have enough data, be able to link evaluation questions to competencies and evaluate if students have received certain competencies in their courses. So it's something that we want students to get very familiar with. And this is a way to begin that introduction to this system. We have the evaluation for our orientation. So for the hybrid students, after they attend the in-person orientation, they're able to fill out an evaluation and give us feedback. For online students, they can fill out the evaluation, giving us information about what they have received from orientation and giving us any feedback on things that we can improve on. So those are some of the uses that we have for the learning management system, and using that as a way to engage students before they attend. So just more benefits to using the online tools. Just having ongoing communication with students before any in-person orientation, and once they've confirmed, they are able to use the orientation site to ask questions and engage with us. And also for us to have ongoing communication where we're not sending emails constantly. We found that students, either they receive a ton of email from the university, maybe even from other universities, and some of our very, very important emails may get lost. So we are able to constantly upload things like course syllabi, the student handbook, especially if we have revisions. It's nothing that's written in stone, so we're not printing a bunch of things and sending them to students, or even sending emails that may be outdated. We're able to keep the site fresh. We have noticed a reduce and melt. So we refer to melt as when students confirm and before the classes begin, they may defer or change their mind. But having this system and getting students engaged early has helped reduce that. And it helps students to feel that they belong to the school and to their program right away. And I've already talked about the reduced email communication, which is helpful for a lot of students. They receive a lot of email. So it's easy, it's good to have everything in one place, and for students to be able to go to that one place and get everything they need, as opposed to searching their email for, you know, information about the in-person orientation or the course syllabus for one course. They can just log in and see everything. Students, they get this information upon confirming. Some students confirm early, so if you confirm in February, You're not receiving this information unless you're in one of the online certificate programs which confirm students and accept students on a quarterly basis. But for our hybrid students, they usually start getting this information in June for an August start. So they're able to get that information, and as soon as students confirm after June, they are able to access this information, and we update it frequently. One other benefit is that we can continue our orientation activities throughout the year. We don't have to have one day and then everything is done, and if you didn't attend, then you're out of luck. The orientation materials are there. They're there for the entire cohort. If someone confirms late, then they're able to see it. It doesn't go away. And then we can also continue to engage those students throughout the year and have different sessions. Blackboard Learn does have Blackboard Collaborate, where we can have synchronous sessions with students if they feel that they need certain questions answered that were not answered during orientation. Is a way to engage those students for a longer period of time. And students can receive and review coursework before classes begin, which is always helpful, especially for the hybrid students who meet only once a month. They do need to be engaged before their first class meeting. So this is a way to keep everything in one place. They will have individual course shells for their individual courses for their first term. But it's been helpful also to the faculty who are teaching in that first term to have everything in one place. And we used to have where we wanted to communicate with an entire cohort, and we would go to the professor who is teaching, the first class. But in some cases, students may waive out of a class, students may register late. In this case, we know that the entire cohort will have access to the information if we put it in the orientation site. So that has been helpful. This is just an example of how one of the orientation sites is set up. Just step one, getting started and having the students review the welcome packet. We used to actually mail that out, and we received a lot of return mail. Email wasn't always effective because we did not know if students were signing up for their Drexel email, and some information we did not want to send to the personal email because we couldn't be sure that that student was not sharing an AOL or Yahoo account with someone else. So having it here in one place has been helpful. We also are able to track when students are logging in, and we are able to track what they have viewed. So even posting the student handbook, we can track to see which students have actually clicked on the student handbook to review it, which has been helpful because we want to make sure that all students have access to the handbook. It's on our website, it's everywhere. But students, it's helpful to have it in more than one place. Also, just more information about Blackboard once they're logged in and what they can expect from their courses. Contact information, the list of faculty that they will be in contact with throughout their time in the program, and getting to know us via Drexel Express. That's an initiative with our Provost office. We also have more information about Drexel Central, just everything in one place, and this has been helpful. It actually has been helpful for our in-person programs as well, where we do see our students frequently, but just putting everything in one place. When I'm advising students, I'm able to refer back to the orientation page. We have a list of resources that students are able to contact, so it could be the Writing Center, International Student and Scholar Services. All of that information is here. So information that could be found on our website, but it's helpful to have everything in one place. So we find ourselves saying a lot, please visit the orientation page, please visit the orientation page. It's there. it's been very helpful to us to monitor student activity and to get students engaged before they begin their program. Just moving forward, one thing we're working on is having one online orientation for all online students. Currently, we have separate pages for the different online certificates, and it would be great just to have everything in one place. And we do have support from our Drexel Online team, so they'll be helping us with that to ensure that all online students are receiving all of the same information and that it's consistent across programs. And we also want to develop this for full implementation with online degree programs. We're currently working on online degree, possibly an online MPH, and just other maybe online MS programs. So if we have full implementation with the online certificates, it'll be a seamless transition once we have online degree programs. And then we want to utilize the systems for all programs. So we have begun to use this for our full-time MPH program, which is our largest program. And it has been helpful just using these same techniques to engage our full-time students before they begin in September. The full-time program is on a quarter system. And so it is difficult to keep students engaged and reduce melt because our program starts a little later. So we have seen that using Blackboard Learn has been very useful to engage our full-time students as well. And I'll take questions after, but thank you for listening.
Hi, great. Thank you so much. I'm Caitlin again, and I'm glad to be here to discuss an important part of our orientation program at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health, and that is our plunge into public health and Pittsburgh. So the plunge is an immersive welcome program. It's designed to give students a look at the real-world application of public health, mostly through local community outreach. It also allows them to network both with faculty and with new classmates while they take a look at the different disciplines of public health prior to starting graduate study. When we definitely got the idea from similar programs that were in existence when we were looking to offer our first plunge, for example, a plunge into practice that the Center for Public Health Practice at Michigan was running, and I believe we looked at some things that George Washington was doing with case studies with their new students at the time. So we set out to engage them. Basically, we want to show public health in action before they start studying the concepts and theories, and we want to get them excited for the work they're going to do while they're here at Pitt Public Health. So there are a couple other things that we do with it. The plunge also serves to introduce students to their presumably new community. We do have some native Pittsburghers, of course, as students, but particularly a lot of our new students have just moved to Pittsburgh. So while we're showing how public health is at work in the area, it's not just that, but by extension, we're able to show new students a little bit of the surrounding neighborhoods we have here in the city. We have activities where you board a bus and travel to a different neighborhood entirely, and sometimes it's just the scenery, literally showing them another neighborhood. We also offer walking activities that take place right in our urban campus's neighborhood. So that gets them out and seeing what's around and sets them up for learning about their new city before classes even start. The other great thing about the plunge is that it's a way for new students to meet each other. We know from our students that part of what they want with orientation and what they want to be given at the beginning of their programs is the chance to interact with and to meet each other. They're looking to make friends. So with the plunge, students appreciate that they've already started a relationship, often in small groups, and it's nice when they see each other in the halls or meet each other in classes the following week that they've already got some shared discussions and experiences. It also gives them the opportunity to meet some of our students that are going into their second year or beyond, so not just fellow new students, but we involve a few continuing students in each program. We might ask them to lead activities or discussions, or talk about their work relative to the activities. Maybe after a lecture they can talk about their practicum work. And so they're also, continuing students are also able to talk generally about their programs, what they like about school, what they like to do in Pittsburgh, their career goals, and that can even be on the bus on the way over to an out-of-house activity. Sometimes those same group leaders are officers from one of our many student organizations, or we've had our student ambassadors that work for us in the Office of Student Affairs lead activities, and that's another great way to couple the plunge with some good information about the services that we provide to students in general. And of course, when they're doing a service project, they're not only getting a look at the organization and learning about the work that they do, and of course doing some of that actual work, but again, they're able to have casual conversations during something like repackaging medical equipment or putting together produce for distribution at a food bank. So we really set out to make that a secondary benefit, you know, sort of offering that time for them to get to know one another through all of these activities, but it ends up being a really important component and one that works really well. Oops, sorry about that. So to give a little more information on the different types of plunges that we offer, we've done a lot of them, but we've had some that have worked out so well that we've done them over and over. But we've had service projects, informational tours, discussions, lectures, all kinds of stuff. And you see some sample titles on your screen here. We recently added a poverty simulation and a number of other things. One thing that's been great is we've been able to work with some organizations where our faculty are already in service or leadership roles, and then they get to run the program and talk to new students about work that they're passionate about. When we offer lectures, it is still with the goal that we're talking about what's going on in the community. So one example is one of our longtime plunge favorites is a lecture on smoking, chromosomes, cancer, and biomarkers. And the faculty member that offers that lecture brings in tobacco-free Allegheny. Allegheny is the county we're in here in Pittsburgh. And Tobacco-Free Allegheny is a nonprofit that provides tobacco prevention, education, and cessation for the citizens of Allegheny County. And so students are also looking at community resources for tobacco prevention and control at that same time. Lately, we've been looking at more ways that we can incorporate professionalism into these activities. This is another thing that we hear from our students. They want us to provide them with networking events. And so we do. We have other events that we provide during the school year, but we were able to bring it right to orientation with a networking workshop offered by Career Services, and then a networking exercise where the new students were able to meet faculty. And then that way they can learn right from them about what they're studying, what they're teaching, and what they're working on in their fields. We added a few administrative and research staff and a few doctoral students to round out that experience. So it's another way we're including our current students. And so that networking event has been a very popular addition to our program. We also look at what's going on in the country and in the world of public health, of course, and as well as what's going on right here at the school when we're looking to pick the plunge activities. So we have a One Book, One Community program, for example, every year. You're probably with how those work, in which we choose a book and invite the whole school to read it and talk about it. And so our theme this year was the opioid epidemic with Sam Quinones' Dreamland as the book. And so before we even had any school-wide activities with that year's theme, we were able to bring that program to the new students through the plunge. We had one of our faculty that works in addiction and substance abuse hold a film screening and then lead a discussion. The new students got a bit of information about the book and the One Book, One Community program. And I think they even got a copy of the book if they attended that one. Just one more example of the timeliness factor. A few years ago, we had the mayor of nearby Braddock as the keynote speaker at our graduation ceremony, and then the following term, we added a service project in that community to our plunge, actually a thrift store of sorts that his wife opened that offers their goods at no charge. It's called the Free Store. And so the students volunteered with them for a few hours and learned about the initiative and their work in the community. But we've had all kinds of things. I mentioned that we added a poverty simulation last year, and that was a big hit. We've had the health department and the emergency operations center involved, a water treatment plant visit, various discussions and small group activities. means that we have a bit of a different schedule every year, and that makes sure requiring that we have a few plunges that are of unlimited capacity, and that we're filling the seats when we're inviting people to speak. And obviously we're also trying to offer, a variety that lets students choose something in a discipline that they're maybe aren't too familiar with. But we've had a lot of varied activities over the 8 years that we've been running the program. And the students really like it. We had about 50% of students that attended some portion of orientation participate in a plunge last year, and that's been pretty standard since we've been running the program. It also represents about half of the incoming cohort, so we're happy with the numbers. Last year, 35 of our students participated in 2 different plunges, since they can select one each in 2 different sessions. So we're glad that people are taking advantage of that. Students have responded well to the activities. Sometimes they continue to volunteer later with organizations that they've been connected to through the plunge. They get the opportunity to start thinking about where to focus their studying, their research, and their careers. We've heard from some that they plan to follow up with faculty that they meet in the networking activity, and they're going into school with a better knowledge of how to network and the power of those connections because of the workshop that they've started with. Overall, we feel we've been successful in helping our new students go into graduate school with a better understanding of the field and the work that faculty and students will be doing alongside them. And of course, if I didn't say this before, this is open to all of our new students entering, regardless of the degree program they're going into. And we offer a lot of variety in the different activities so that the plunge works for everyone. If you're looking to start a program like this, I would say talk to your faculty and see what organizations they might be working with, or get someone that's teaching research ethics to run a case study and discussion, for example. You can get someone that's working on an emerging problem, or something in your school is giving specific attention to, through something like I mentioned, our One Book, One Community program, a grant that someone's just gotten. We've put together panels to key our students into emerging issues or to things that are particular our faculty, students, and alumni are working really well on out in our community or anywhere in the world, really. There are benefits, obviously, to small groups, especially for something like a case study or a photo research project. You can't have huge groups in many of these things, and it's also nicer for the students to be in smaller groups. But we found it's also best to have a few that have really large capacities. Scheduling our film screening or a lecture in a large auditorium so that we know that we can accommodate everyone, regardless of their interest. We do tell people up front that plunges have limited capacities, and that's for the better, and that they should sign up early to get their first choices. We have seen interest change on a few things from year to year, and so we also know that we don't want to offer so much that we're not filling all of the seats, particularly ones where we're inviting outside speakers. And speaking of students getting their first choices, we do run a wait list for things, and we make an impression on the students that they've signed up and are potentially taking another student's place, and encourage them to let us know if they change their minds or if their schedules no longer accommodate what they signed up for. And that's nice because it's another small way to introduce professionalism in graduate school. But all in all, that dance between large and small groups and offering enough activities versus offering too many has worked out pretty well for us. So thank you for letting me talk about this program. It's something we've really worked hard on, and it takes a lot of people to pull it off. And so we're happy to talk a little bit about it. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you for being here today, Jan, Stephanie, and Caitlin. We are going to take this time now to address questions from the question box. So everyone, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. The first question, I believe this is for Jan. What types of prizes are awarded for correct answers in the scavenger hunt?
We typically just get donations from some local area businesses, so it might be a Starbucks card or a Chipotle or something like that. So typically something like that, you could give some of your giveaways, t-shirts or something if you have them from your own college as well.
Great. Thank you. And this is, I guess, for anyone who's able or feels that they would like to answer it, or maybe multiple. Do you have any suggestions for an orientation that has more than 400 students attending?
This is Stephanie from Drexel. I won't say that I have suggestions for that large of an orientation. Usually we have no more than 250 students with all of our programs when we have our full-time students come in along with doctoral and MS students. But I will say that using online tools will help to engage the students beforehand. And we have found that that has been helpful with our full-time students, just getting a handle on what type of information they're looking for. We know what we want to give to the students, but just getting discussion board feedback from students before orientation has been helpful for us. It may be something as simple as knowing where to go for lunch or dinner, knowing about other orientation programs on campus, because Drexel does have a graduate student orientation, and then for our undergraduate students, there are university-wide activities, so giving that information to them online beforehand has been helpful with managing their expectations once they're here.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Does Jan or Caitlin, do you have any response, thoughts?
This is Jan. We have about 200 at our orientation, so I haven't dealt with that large of a population, but I do wonder if maybe breaking them into smaller groups that are by their concentration or their degree area, if that would be helpful, so they get an opportunity to get a little bit more time together and you have an opportunity to be with them in a smaller group. But that's all logistics, so I don't know how viable that is for your campus.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Caitlin. This is Caitlin. I would agree with Jan. That's way more than we have, but we also only have them ever together for, one sort of small portion in the beginning, and it is sort of the logistics at the school level for our main orientation program, but we try to split them up beyond that in a variety of ways and for a variety of reasons, but one important one is that we do split people up by their department, and then the department chooses whether that also means by their degree program in subgroups, and that's really where a lot of the meat of their information comes from. So that might be something that you might be able to do with that large of a group anyway.
Great. Thanks to all three of you for those answers. This is for Caitlin. What has been the most highly attended session during Plunge into Pitt?
That's a good question. It all depends. I mean, so technically they all have different capacities, so the highest attendance doesn't necessarily speak to the most popular thing. I can say that some of our more popular things over the years have been the networking activity that we added that I mentioned, and also our Global Links service activity is always really popular. That's a local nonprofit as well that does medical repackaging, and some of the staff and faculty in our Center for Global Health here have other relationships with them and do different things with them throughout the year, and that's always one that fills up. They can only accommodate about 25 people at a time for that service project, but people are really into global health, obviously, and opportunities to, affect things on a global scale. So that always has a lot of people that sign up. We always run a wait list for that one. The smoking and genetics lecture that I mentioned is one of the in-house ones that's always really popular. And just one more that I'll mention that always fills up, that we've been doing for a long time, is called Photos, Public Health Our Story. Our Time, Our Story, rather, and that's where one of our faculty members uses the photo voice research tool and explains that to the students a little bit, gives them an intro, and then they go out walking in the neighborhood here and take pictures of what public health means to them or why they came here, and then they come back and they look at them together and discuss. And so again, that's another one that has a real defined capacity because of the nature of it, but it's one that always fills and that people are always really itching to get into, if you will.
Great. Those all sound really exciting. This question is for Stephanie. Could you provide examples of prompts or icebreakers that you use in the Blackboard discussion boards?
Yes, we just ask students to introduce themselves, say where they're from, what school they attended for undergrad, and what they expect to get out of the program. We have tried icebreakers where we get students, we pair them up, and we not make them, but we encourage them to speak with each other, and then the other person introduces the other student. So if it's me and Caitlin, I would speak with Caitlin offline. So that could be via email, telephone, and then come back online, and then I would introduce Caitlin, and she would introduce me. And that's a way and we would ask that you give some information that no one else would know. So we've had students come back, and we do this in the in-person orientation when we have the smaller groups as well, where we say, give information that no one else would know, something very unique, and people will say things like, I was an at-home birth, or I have a twin, no one else knows that. So that helps students to get to know each other a little better, because and hopefully make a friend where they are connected and they can reach out to each other during their time in the program if they have questions about the work. For our hybrid students, we found that they get very close during that time because it's a cohort program. They go through all of the same classes together. So things like that help for them to build relationships.
Wonderful. Thank you. For Jan, have you found a difference since implementing the scavenger hunt with the types or number of questions that students come to student services about?
Well, I wish it solved all of them, but to be honest, we've definitely seen the dates and some of those things, such as the drop add date. We've seen a decrease in the number of students who miss that date and come to our office, or they're at least coming ahead with questions. We also are noticing more students are saying, I saw this in the handbook, and then they're asking clarification. And that's one of the things we really want to empower them to do too, is to start looking in the handbook. If they can't find the exact answer they need, or they need a little clarification, then we can help walk them through. But oftentimes they can solve whatever their question or issue is right by looking at it. So yeah, it hasn't solved all of our outreach from students in terms of asking questions that are in the handbook, but it certainly, we've seen a difference in them starting with the handbook and then coming with a little bit more educated of a question.
That's great. It's not the be-all, end-all, but a piece of it. Actually, who is in, I guess this could be for everyone, who is in charge of planning orientation and or these orientation activities, and how many people are involved in the planning? Maybe just a general overview of the planning process, maybe a quick snapshot, and then when do these activities get announced? I guess that would be a little bit different per activity, the type of activity. So maybe, Caitlin, you could address that one, since you have a lot of different activities. How many faculty members or people are involved in the planning, and when do they get announced to students?
Sure. And really my answer is going to be it differs a little bit depending on the year and depending on each one. The short answer for when they get announced is sort of ASAP. We try to get everything open for students to register for both orientation and whichever plunges they might be interested in by July 1st. Occasionally that waits a couple days, and it's often waiting for plunge details. We try not to open it up without things being finalized, so that we don't have to go back to people later and give them more information about registering. But we usually start talking about the plunge internally in as early as March for our August orientation if we know that we need to make changes or we know that we want to start offering some new activities. We try to give ourselves a little time so as to do that quickly. And it really just depends on the activity as to how many people are involved. Obviously with a networking activity, that is run services, and I'm there as the event coordinator to help everybody get everything off the ground, but they obviously need to recruit faculty to be the networkers, and so that involves a bunch of people. The poverty simulation involves a bunch of people because they are the simulators. They're creating this environment for different faculty and staff volunteers, but then others just need one or two people. Like I said, we usually try to involve students, so there are some, the photo activity that I described is the idea and the baby of one of our faculty members, and she's run it for a few years now, and we alternate the staff and the students that help her to take that, to pull that off. So orientation, the main program is run obviously by our Office of Student Affairs under our Associate Dean for Student Affairs, Cindy Bryce, and the admissions manager coordinates the main portion, and then I'm responsible for the plunges. But like I said, a lot goes into them, and it really depends on the activity.
Great, thank you. For Stephanie, do you know what the utilization of the Blackboard Learn as an orientation component by your students?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Sure, the utilization rate of the Blackboard Learn. So how many of your students actually do log in and use it as an orientation component rather than, I guess, logging in for the first time when their class syllabi go out? Or
I would say it's 90% because some students are confirming late, but for our online students it's mandatory. There's no other orientation. For the hybrid students, after classes begin it's 100%, but sometimes before the in-person orientation it's only 90% of the students, and then there's a few students who are confirming late and they haven't had a chance to pick up their Drexel email account and log in yet. But we do expect for all of the online and hybrid students to utilize Blackboard Learn before. So we're working towards getting 100% of the students into the orientation site before they begin classes.
Gotcha. All right, so this is a follow-up question. Do you have scheduled live webinar sessions as part of orientation besides the occasional ad hoc synchronous sessions you mentioned?
No, and that is something that we're working on for all of the online certificate programs. We're finding that the students have the same questions even though they're in different programs. So each of the program directors will have their own activities that they want their students to participate in, but we are working on having synchronous sessions with all online certificate students before they begin classes, and that's something that we'll have to do on a quarterly basis because we are accepting students quarterly for those online certificate programs. So we are working on that.
Great. And then this is a little bit of a different kind of question, and it's for all of you. Does anyone offer short courses to prep students for biostatistics or epidemiology or writing prior to the start of class as part of your orientation activities?
This is Jan. We don't, but we're looking into it.
This is Caitlin, and we do have some writing at the university level, but again, I would say also that we're looking into it. It's something that we know would be a benefit. The logistics are a little bit tough, but we are looking into more, if we can't offer courses like that specifically, into how we can better point our students to resources that might exist elsewhere.
And this is Stephanie. We started with the assessment just to get a sense of where students are before they get here. But having a short class is something that we've talked about. It's just getting the implementation. I think all schools are probably looking into something like that, but we haven't implemented anything like that yet.
Great, thank you. And then probably we have time for maybe one or two questions. A few of you did mention that you might offer your orientation multiple times, but this question asks, do you host your orientations multiple times a year or just in the fall, or do you have a similar or modified version for the spring or summer orientation?
This is Caitlin. At Pitt, we've traditionally only done one for the fall. That's when the majority of our students join, although I can't say how those numbers break down. But we will be looking to do something for spring starts for the first time next January. So it's not going to be anywhere near as robust as our fall program, from what I understand, although we're in the infancy of the planning. And we're also going to look into ways that we can capture some of the stuff, record some of the stuff that we do in the fall in order to share that and hopefully be able to put some stuff online. But we're not sure. We're not sure what shape that program is going to take, but we'll be doing it for the first time.
This is Jan. We offer a very modified version for anyone who starts in the summer or starts in the spring, and then our full orientation, who we invite all of those students to, is in August.
And this is Stephanie. All of our programs begin in the fall except for our online certificate programs, which we accept students on a quarterly basis. So every other orientation we have once a year, but for our online certificate students, it's a quarterly occurrence.
Thank you. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. I just want to say thank you to all who attended today's presentation, and also thank you to today's presenters, Jan Gascoigne, Stephanie Johnston, and Caitlin McCullough. As a reminder, this webinar has been recorded and will be made available on the ASPPH website in the archived webinar section soon. Please be sure to contact us with any additional questions and to register for the next webinars in the ASPPH Presents series. There will be one actually today at 3 p.m. Eastern, a framework for educating health professionals to address the social determinants of health, and it is not too late to register if you are interested in that webinar. And lastly, ASPPH, with the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture, is co-sponsoring the 2016 Fall Building for Health and Wellbeing Structure City Systems Conference. Abstract submissions are invited from the ACSA and ASPPH communities, as well as non-member practitioners and faculty that address the range of topics related to built environment and human health. The topic areas and more information is available on the conference website that is located on your screen. Thank you again to all of our speakers, and have a great day.